See, this movie like kind of tried to tell you pretty early it was going to be a little unconventional. When they're playing this music um, during that intro, that pretty intense intro sequence with the kids and the Teletubbies, and they're getting destroyed and ripped apart. But
Wait, sit here. Auntie, what's going on? Jimmy.
so last week took me and my dad, we went out and saw 28 Years Later, the much anticipated third installment of whatever you want to call it, the 28 zombie trilogy, I guess is probably a good way to describe it. And yeah, it's been pretty polarizing. I feel like the audience, you either really enjoy the movie or you hate it. Like that's literally all I've seen is it's either this movie sucks, I don't know what they were thinking, or that was awesome. I will say when the movie ended, I remember turning and looking at my dad and we both kind of just did like a what the fuck did we just watch? Um but I think it was in like a good way that we said that. I think that audience members for this movie kind of split into two camps. You have people who went into it expecting it to be this, brutal, gritty, hyperspeed zombie film, right? With the intensity of the previous two movies. Um, and when we look at the trailer, the trailer kind of sold it as this very intense, anxiety ridden, brutal post apocalypse movie. You got Aaron Taylor Johnson looking like a badass with the bow and arrow. And so for that half of the audience, yeah, I think that you're completely justified in thinking that the movie kind of sucked because you got the movie you were expecting for the first like 45 minutes, I would say. And then things take a pretty big turn. And then I think the other type of audience member for this movie is the people that went into it assuming that it would just be a pretty straightforward zombie film. I think I fell into that camp where watching the trailer, I'm looking at the footage with like Aaron Taylor Johnson and the kid, and I'm getting like Last of Us-y vibes. So I'm going into it thinking that we're gonna get some type of like Danny Boyle rendition of The Last of Us, right? Where whether or not you don't know if it's his son watching the trailer, but it's going to be Aaron Taylor Johnson being a badass with his bow and arrow, and he's going to have to escort this kid, from point A to point B. And then you're kind of pleasantly surprised when it's like, nah, we're not going to do that. We'll do that for a little bit. And then that shift starts to happen. By the way, there's probably a spoiler warning on the video. I'm going to do my best to not talk about like specific plot points. I'll try to keep it as vague as I can. But the TLDR of the film is you have Aaron Taylor Johnson and his son Spike. They live on an island settlement that is just off of the coast of mainland Britain, and the mainland has been quarantined. So the rest of the world is just living normally. And I guess mainland Britain has been essentially, it's like surrounded by military naval boats of other countries that constantly patrol the oceans to ensure that no one tries to leave the quarantine zone, which I thought was interesting. So they kind of retconned the ending of Weeks, right? Because I think the ending of Weeks, they show the infected like reaching Paris. You can see like the Eiffel Tower, and I guess they retcon that, and they're like, no, 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 the infected never left mainland Britain, so everybody is kept here. So you have Aaron Taylor Johnson and his son Spike living in this settlement. Spike's mother is incredibly ill with an undisclosed condition. At least early in the film, you're not explicitly told what she's suffering from, but she's basically bedridden. She has really bad psychological issues with like memory and comprehending like who she's talking to, things like that. So the gist of the film is in Act One, Spike goes with his father to the mainland because Spike is now, I guess, of age. He's 12, which seems pretty young to be asked to go murder infected people with a bow and arrow. But he does. So his father takes him to the mainland for the sole purpose of, just killing infected. Um, and at the end of Act One, I'll just say they're returning to the island. And this is like when Danny Boyle starts to kind of flex that creative muscle a little bit, where they're running, it's nighttime, and they're running across this causeway back to the island. And they keep doing these wide shots where they're showing like big chunks of the night sky. And the night sky, as the sequence goes on and on and on, the night sky just becomes more and more fantastical, where by the end of it, it looks like they're running through like fucking space. There's like nebulas and like pink aurora borealis in the background, and they're just like running. It's really cool, but I think that's like one of those turning points in the film where it's like, okay, we're kind of done with the conventional zombie stuff now. And things are going to get a little bit more experimental. Things are going to get a little bit weird. You're going to see some weird shit in this movie. And I think that was part of the fun, was being surprised. And I think, hopefully we can all agree that in 2025, you don't get these kind of movies often anymore, where you have a writer and a director who, whether for good or for worse, they're just like, fuck it, let's just do the movie we want to do. Let's be weird. Like, one of the most bizarre things about this movie was they keep cutting to it's footage of a Shakespeare adaptation of Henry V. So it's like this old time movie, and they keep cutting to like footage of it where they show like medieval knights and they're all like shooting bows, or they're like riding on horses, like a whole medieval army. I guess to like juxtapose with like, hey, look at how these people are living in the zombie apocalypse. It's very like primitive, their lifestyle. So there's like a parallel between that and medieval. I'm not sure what he was going for specifically with that stuff, but there was a lot of other, like, they kept showing footage of, it was like night vision footage of the infected um, in the woods at night, and they're like tearing a deer apart. They kept showing that, and that was like maybe some of the most unsettling stuff in the film. But I'm trying to think. Let's talk about the second act, where we kind of meet Ray Fiennes' character, and he essentially is teaching the boy to honor the dead. And he has the whole big bone temple and all those giant like pyres made of skulls and bones that we see in the trailer. And it's here where the movie just starts to get really bizarre, and you start reaching a climax of the film that you just never would have anticipated. I don't really want to spoil it, but it's essentially an incredibly emotionally charged scene. Um, Anytime you see a movie, you're kind of watching it and you're trying to figure out, okay, where is this thing going? And so with this film, early on, when it's Aaron Taylor Johnson and the kid, and they're just, they're out there just doing zombie shit. They're killing zombies with the bow. They're having all these close calls and whatnot. And you're thinking, all right, at some point, I'm assuming that their settlement is going to be attacked either by the infected or maybe by a group of like raiders from the mainland or something like that. And you don't get that. You don't get any kind of traditional ending. Instead, you get this kind of out of left field, um, bizarre scene where a young boy has to really come to terms with what death means. Um, and it's really bizarre. I can see again, this is the people that went into this movie expecting it to be a zombie film. They're going to get extremely turned off by this part. And then I haven't even touched on the last sequence of the film, which I think this is this is the biggest offender. This one even kind of took me out of it a little bit because it's such tonal whiplash where you're just like, so I will spoil this part. So basically you have this movie, right, that while experimental and a little unconventional, it takes itself seriously the whole time. That's the general tone. The movie takes itself seriously. And the very final sequence, they reintroduce a character from the beginning of the film who's now grown up, and he essentially is like the leader of this gang of people who are dressed in colored tracksuits. And apparently, I've learned since watching the film that they're like heavily inspired by Jimmy Savile, who, from what I've read online, is like the British Bill Cosby, but worse. It's about all I know about him. But all these people in the film, in 28 years later, they've got like either long blonde hair, or some of them are just wearing like blonde wigs, and they have, they're all different colored tracksuits, which kind of echoes the Teletubbies from the beginning of the film. Um, and it like they basically just fight a bunch of infected, but it's shot in a way that reminds me of like if like Tarantino did a zombie film. There's like, I think, a punk rendition of the Teletubbies theme song playing while these people are like highlight reel killing zombies and doing backflips, and they're all using like they're all using like ninja weapons. Um, it's just such tonal whiplash. It's so bizarre. There's no way you watch it and you go, "Oh yeah," like there's just no way. It's such a clash from the rest of the movie. My take on it is that I think they're trying to set up some expectations for the next film. So I guess that I think they have to already be shooting or done shooting um, another 28 film that's supposed to come out in January of 26. So we got like, what is it, like 6 or 7 months now until that comes out. Um, and that is not being directed by Danny Boyle. That will have a new director. And I would assume that a large focus of that film is going to be these Jimmy Seville like Teletubby people, and it might be very tonally different from what we're used to. It might be more of like a tongue-in-cheek kind of humorous zombie film, something closer to like maybe a Shaun of the Dead or Return of the Living Dead type thing. I'm not sure, but I will agree with people that are like, yeah, what the hell was the ending? What was that? It's definitely bizarre. But I think as a whole, like I said, this movie to me was fun. It's one of those movies that I keep finding myself thinking about. Even like it's been, almost a week since I've seen it, and I keep just like thinking about parts of it and different scenes. And I think maybe my favorite part of the movie is the sound design. The music is just like absolutely incredible. Let me see if I can pull up a snippet here, and then we'll get like fined from YouTube. Yeah, let's get this part going right here. Yeah, this one. Ooh. Yeah, that's that good shit. And then, of course,
Moving up and down again. There's
Boots.
no discharge in the war.
I was super happy to see that they they worked that audio into the actual movie itself. I was assuming it was only going to be in the trailer where we saw that, but they bring it back into the film. I think it's used really well. It sets a tone early, and then that tone kind of completely changes like a half hour later. Um, but it's cool. All in all, I think the movie was fun. Like I said, we don't get movies like this too much anymore, where you got a director and a writer who are just like, yeah, we're not going to stick to the script of what people are going to expect with this movie. We're going to try to elevate a little bit and make something that transcends the zombie genre a bit. I do want to talk about real quick before we wrap up. We can talk about performances. I got to look up this kid's name. Whoever the kid is that plays Spike. Let's see what his name is real fast. Alfie Williams. Alfie Williams. If you take away anything from this movie, it's keep an eye on the career of Alfie Williams. This kid carried the freaking movie, man. And Danny Boyle, I think, asked a lot of him. He is the protagonist of the film, make no mistake. His character Spike is the continuous force throughout the film that we follow. And dude, the kid did it, because if he can't carry, and if that kid didn't work out, the whole movie would fail. His performance was vital for it to be a successful film. I think it was, man. He killed it. I thought that Aaron Taylor Johnson did a really good job playing a pretty conflicted character who, again, those expectations coming into the movie of what you assume Aaron Taylor Johnson's character is going to be. And he kind of is that, and then they start to kind of pull the curtain back a little bit, and you see the flaws. And I thought he did a really good job, despite pretty limited screen time. Aaron's only in the film basically for Act 1, and then he comes back a little bit at the end. But he was good. I thought the actress Jodie Comer, who plays the mother, did a really good job. And Ralph Fiennes he's very well suited for these kind of roles where he plays someone who's just a bit off. Yeah, performances were all great. The music was great. Like I said, if you're fine with the movie not being a start to finish typical zombie film, I think you're going to enjoy it. If you're looking for a horror film, you just want to see people kill zombies, probably not for you. But yeah, I'm excited for the next one. Again, I'm going into it now with the assumption that it's going to be kind of goofy. That would be my guess, is that the next film will be pretty goofy. I would expect, hopefully, the trailer to reflect that. I think 28 years later is a little bit of a victim of its marketing to a degree. And we said this earlier, where you had that trailer that was so like, they were just building tension and setting the precedent that this is going to be like this pressure cooker of a film with like anxiety, and there's going to be violence, and there is and there isn't. But that's it. Thanks y'all for watching. Tune in next time. I don't know what we're going to talk about, but it's probably going to be a movie or a video game. Peace. What's up, guys, and welcome back to the channel. Except this is my first video. Christ. Thanks for coming to the channel to check out this new motherfucker. What's up, motherfuckers? Welcome to the channel. What up? What up, bitch?